I've always planned my garden on paper, but today we're going digital, and I'm going to tell you some very important reasons why I'm doing that this season. But if you're a paper fan, make sure that you go to my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com/garden planner, and you can get my free ebook. It has everything you need in here, from scheduling, marking your goals, even a place to draw out your garden plan. This is for those people that really like to put pen to paper, which is typically me, but that is changing today. So today we're going to be using a tool called Seedtime, and this was something that I had gotten into probably over a year ago when the company kind of first came out, and I was interested to see what they had to offer. They were kind of glitchy in the beginning, but they really have worked out a lot of the issues, and it really has become a tool that I like to use in certain situations. The thing I really love about Seedtime is it has all of these different menu options, like calendar, which is really a calendar of your entire schedule of everything that you're going to be planting, everything you're going to be cultivating, which basically means like fertilizing, or, you know, if you're doing pest management. It has when to harvest, when to prepare your beds, like the whole thing, direct seed versus transplant. It shows it all. Then it has layout, which is a really cool new function. It is part of the paid version. So if you are interested in that, I do have a link down in the description of this video. But the layout tool is really cool. I'll show it to you in just a second. The one that I have used a lot, even while using my paper version here for planning, is the task tool. And this is a really cool feature. It basically tells you every single week what you need to be doing, which is very helpful when you have a garden that's kind of sizable and you can't, you know, necessarily keep track of all the tasks of all the different plants. I love this one, and they recently came out with a mobile version that has some of the functionality so you can take it into the garden instead of just working off a computer. Then they have like your journal for your note taking. Then they have a classroom which teaches you all kinds of things about growing different kinds of plants. They have a community tab for social networking, and then they have a store where they sell seeds and live plants. We're going to start in the area of the calendar, and this part of this tool is free for anyone to use, even if you're not on a paid plan. And as you can see here, it starts out with, this was June right here, and then we had July, and then August, and you can change the dates up here if you didn't want to show older dates. And you can see all the things that I have, from my peppers needing to be harvested, my watermelons, I have some Puerto Rican black beans that are ready to be harvested. But then if we scroll down into September, let's see here, I had it filtered to where I only had harvesting. You can see here this task filter is really helpful if you're looking for what I need to seed that week, or what I need to cultivate that week. You can, or what do I need to transplant that week. You can select whichever task that you're looking for. So I can take the harvest off, and now you can see the things that I actually have to work on for the next season. I actually sat down and I did all my planning on the app, and it was a lot of fun. If you're in a southern state like Florida, like me, or in a warmer state where you grow through the winter, there is a little bit of finagling you're going to have to do in this app. This app was really designed, I think, for a majority of gardeners. I think it does work for a lot of gardeners. If you're someplace like here where you don't have those freeze and frosts, they're going to attempt to try to get you not to grow during the frost period. But even though I get a few frosts a year, I can continue to grow all winter long. So there are some things I'm going to point out as we move through here to show you how it's going to be a little bit different for us versus for our northern gardener friends. So let's use turnips as an example, right? You go up here to add the crop, and then I'm going to type in turnips. And then underneath that, you can pick the varieties. I'm going to do the purple top white globe. And then you can use this as a labeling, so just for, you know, notes or something if you're going to do something special with it. The color is what color it's going to show up on the calendar. If that matters to you, I just let it default to whatever color it wants. It will separate the plants by different colors. Here is where I usually make adjustments in the advanced section. So if you weren't to do anything in the advanced section and you were just to schedule it, basically what it's going to do is, and it's going to look for your next spring season. And that's not what we want, right? We want to grow in fall because fall is our big season. So you have your planting method, and most of the time it selects transplant or direct seed based on what that plant prefers. So if you're not really sure what a plant prefers, this will tell you exactly whether it prefers to be transplanted or direct seeded. And then you can pick your seed date. So it's going to be relative to frost at this time of year, and then after we go through winter, it will be relative to frost but for spring. So if we come down here right now, it's saying relative to frost. So what this system does is it goes and it looks for my projected first frost date in the winter. Here in Florida, where I live, my projected first frost date is usually right around Christmas, and it ends somewhere around like early February. I can't remember the exact dates, but that's only about 6 weeks of time. So I grow through the season. I just try to aim to grow things that can handle colder temperatures, like kale and broccoli, lettuce, onions, garlic. Lots of stuff can handle 32 degrees. So when you start getting below 28, that plants start having a problem. But you can circumvent that in a lot of different ways. If you're a little bit north of me, you can do cold frames, you can put hoop houses. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of keep that temperature down. And if you're south of me, you don't have a frost date, but it is automatically going to try to put a frost date here. It might just be a one-day frost date. But what that does is it backdates it. So what it's going to say here is if I select turnips and I say, yeah, go ahead and do it fall, winter season, predicted for my frost date, it's going to say 10 weeks before my first frost date. So it's going to try to get me to grow things way too early and stop growing them or have them ready to harvest before Christmas time for me. But I can grow turnips through the whole winter. So what I usually do in this instance is I will switch to manual and I will pick the date that I want to use. But for the sake of showing you how this works, I'm going to leave it on the fall winter so that I can show you what it's attempting to do and how I would address it later. Then you have, spacing. I usually don't even mess with this stuff, but you can if you want to do different spacings. It has the harvest date. If you're picking from the list, it will automatically know how many days to harvest, how many days to transplant. It knows all those things, which is really cool. And then if you want to do winter gardening, you can say whether or not you're going to cover or not cover. And so I'm going to hit schedule, and then we're going to go look at this one. So on my list over here on the side, I can scroll down and I can see in alphabetical order my turnips here in purple. If I want to just see the turnips on this side, I can come up here and type turnips, and it will show me that I should direct seed them. Let me turn this. That I should direct seed them in October, which is not a bad time to plant turnips because October it's cool enough that they'll be able to handle that. It shows you cultivating, so it has the bed prep and then it has the direct seed and then it shows to cultivate. And then down here you can see it is attempting to try to get me to harvest by January. And that actually is not a bad time frame, but if you wanted to grow turnips and have them ready to harvest in February, you would have to come in and come back here and either tell it, make the seeding date, let's turn it down by 4 weeks. So instead of 9 weeks or 10 weeks before the first frost date, we're going to say 5 weeks before the first frost date. And now I can update that and everything's going to shift down, and then I can start getting some harvest in February. So you see that when you live in a place like where we do, where you're going to want to be able to harvest even during your frost period, you're going to have to kind of play with that. The other easiest way of doing it is to come here and instead of letting the system do it based on your frost date, that you pick a time. So I want to grow them, let's say, I want to start them on November 1st. And then if I update that, you'll see everything shift. And then November 1st means I'm going to get turnips in February. You can kind of shift it based on that. That's probably the biggest adjustment you have to make when you're using this and you live in a warm weather climate, because it doesn't necessarily recognize that you can grow through your frost date. So now if I delete this, I can get back here. I'm going to take off my harvest because I want you to see the stuff that I have going on. So this is my plan. So in August, I have to seed all of these things. I have to cultivate or fertilize different things. You can see how much I have on here. There's just a lot. I have a lot of beds. I have a lot of plans for this winter garden. Crazy. It's a little crazy. And to think about writing all that on a piece of paper and understanding exactly when everything is going to happen and when I have to do everything and where I need to put it, it gets a little overwhelming when it's just on paper. Now, the other major reason why I'm using Seedtime for my garden planning for fall and winter is because we are planning on going on a trip. We're going to go on an RV trip. And if you've been watching my channel for a little bit, you know that we go for long RV trips, 2 or 3 months at a time. That means I'm going to abandon my garden in the middle of our best season. You know, it's not the best idea, but it is something that we do. And so what I want to do is I want to be able to adjust it so that I know when my harvests are coming and when my seeding and my transplanting are occurring, so that way I can adjust my plans for the trip. So for example, if I care about when I seed, when I direct seed, and when I transplant and when I'm going to harvest everything that I have going on, I know that I'm going to leave. I believe I'm leaving in November. So in November and December, I want the least amount of stuff going on. So in November, I look, and my peppers, if I leave them, it's no big deal. My pumpkins, if I leave those on, that's not really a big deal. I'm probably just going to have to live with the fact that I'm going to lose some roselle. But what I end up doing is, I don't, like, for example, if you notice, there's not a whole lot of transplanting or seeding, direct seeding or seeding in trays happening after that first week of November. Everything is like some harvest that will either have to wait till I get back or, you know, will just not happen. And you can see that in December, we're going to be gone in December too. All of this is just harvest. It's because I was able to plug all my plants in, and then I came to this calendar right here and I looked at each one. And so for example, the turnips right now that we just added say that I need to direct seed them the first week of November, but I'm not going to be here. So by opening this up and saying, you know what, I don't want to direct seed the first week of November. I want to direct seed before I leave. So if I leave in November, you know, maybe that Monday before I leave, I'm going to direct seed everything. And if I update that, it's going to shift that. And then I'm going to find my turnips right there. Direct seeding my turnips right before I leave. And so once again, if I just put turnips here and I open up the filtering for the harvest, you can see that I direct seed before I leave. I have that week. And then I won't harvest them until January, February, which I should be back by then. So this tool is very, very helpful for planning things. So maybe you're not going on an RV trip, but maybe you are going on a big family trip. Or maybe, you know, it's the holidays and you have a lot going on. You got a lot of family coming in and you want to think ahead and say, you know what, I don't want my garden to need me for about 2 weeks. This is where this tool is very, very helpful because you can see it all laid out on a calendar and you know exactly what needs to be done at every single week and every single month. Right now I have this listed as monthly right here, but you can see all the days of the month on each one of these. You can expand it and stuff. There's a lot of customization with this tool, which is really nice. So laid out here, I know that for turnips, I'm good. There's going to be nothing that needs to be done through November, December, and a good part of January, so I can enjoy my travels during that time period. The next part of the tool that's pretty cool, this is under the paid version. If you don't want to go on a paid version, you don't have to use this part of it, but if you do have the paid version, is the layout. And this is my garden layout. And not the most beautiful layout. I've seen some prettier layouts, but this was just implemented recently. And so I know that they're kind of still working on making this pretty. But here's my layout. If you've seen my garden, this is my pool right here. These are the beds that are right next to each other, and I name each one of the beds. Oh, there it is. Bed 3, for example, is right here. These are all beds that I've named. This is my palm tree where I grow my Seminole pumpkins. These little brown circles right here are my green stalks. Over here is my shed, and if I scroll down a little bit more, here's the green stalk that sits up against the wall of my house. Now I could have put my house in here, I could have put all my fruit trees down here, but I'm mainly focused on the annual garden when I use this tool, and not necessarily all my perennials that I have. It's mainly the annual plant. So from here, what I can do is I have my calendar up at the top here with all of my plants, right? And I can go in November when I leave, what is my garden going to look like? So originally this was empty and I didn't have any plants in here, but we need to do the turnips, right? We added the turnips. Now I need to find a place for them. So let's scroll down to turnips. Turnips right here. And this little guy, I have, let's see here. I got potatoes right here. I have an empty spot. That's where we're going to put the turnips. It's a shady spot over here, but they'll be fine in that shade. And then you can just kind of click it and drag it, and it'll take up that space right there. I'll have the turnips all in there. And you can see the cool thing about this particular tool, other than the fact of having a visual of where everything is I can see what is where depending on the months, because it links back to the calendar, and the calendar knows when you seed something, when you transplant it, when you harvest it, and how long that harvest window is. My turnips, we saw, would be harvested between the end of January and the middle of February. So if I come all the way out here to March, you're going to see this little purple disappear. Actually, everything disappeared because nothing in my garden is still there. But if I start coming into February, you start to see the turnips, because the turnips are there from the time I seed them in, I think it was November-ish, right? Looks like, okay, so the end of October, the last week of October, I seed my turnips, and they are there the whole time that I'm gone in the garden. And then when I return, I'm going to be harvesting them in January, and then they'll end, or basically when the plant's going to die, in around February, and then that space will be available. And so as you move from month to month to month, you're going to see what spots are now available as compared to what spots were available in November. I really like that, because I don't like there to be any empty spaces in my garden. I don't like there to be spots that are naked. I like the soil to be covered constantly. So seeing this and being able to put my little cursor on a week and go, are there any open spots in the garden that need to be filled? Yep, I see some open spots in between the lettuces here. I see some open spots down here by the nasturtiums, so I can start planning what I want to grow during that time period. This is especially helpful when you are planning something way in advance. You can do like a year of planning on here. If you are very much like a planner like I am and you just love it, you can do over a year or 2 years or 3-year plan of what you want your garden to look like, either growing in size or where you're going to place plants. It's really, really fun. And you can do that because as the plants cycle off or as they die off, you can see that there is now an open space in the garden and you can move things to that spot. It's also a really good way of seeing what was planted in that before. So if you're thinking about crop rotation and maybe you had a lot of disease on your tomatoes, you maybe don't want to grow them in the same spot, but I don't know, it's been like 3 seasons and I can't remember where they were grown 3 seasons ago because I just don't have that great of a memory. You can come back here and look at your previous seasons and see where your plants were at different stages. I know this is like really detailed. And some people are like, I'm a chaos gardener, I'm just going to toss seeds into the ground. By all means, please do that. If you'd rather use your ebook, that's cool. But for somebody who came from an IT background, for somebody who is overly organized and efficient, this is my like dream. I'm like geeking out on this layering that they have. I'm looking forward to it looking a little bit prettier, but it's very good. And then the spacing is really good too. Like they will show you exactly how much space that you need for each one of these. Now, if you're geeking out as much as I am about something like this and you really want this tool in your life, use my link down in the description. It will give you $5 worth of free seeds in their store, which is a lot of fun. But now here's the really cool part. This is the part of the app that I have been using for years now. I feel like it just works better than trying to do this on paper, and that's going to be the task. I love this so much. So the task is a week by week or even day by day list of tasks that you should do based on the calendar that you set up. So based on the calendar that I set up with all of those plants that I'm growing. So for this week, it's going to show me that harvest, I should have already harvested my Egyptian spinach. It is overdue. It's in bed 9. So in case you don't remember where your spinach is, it's in bed 9. And then it's telling me that all my peppers need to be harvested. It's telling me that I have to seed my winter squash, that I have some basil and oregano that need to be harvested. It's going to show me all my completed tasks. I love this part of the tool more than all, more than everything, more than the calendar, more than the layout. I love the task. And what's really cool is recently Seedtime has heard the feedback that their customers have been giving them, which is we need a mobile app. I don't mind sitting on my computer and drafting out my plan for my garden, but when I go out into the garden, I can't carry this computer out there, and I have to keep coming in every few minutes to see what is it that I'm supposed to, do on my task list. And so it does have, you can access the website on your phone. It's just not easy. It's not meant for a small screen. It's not meant for a mobile device or anything like that. It's just not easy to navigate. It's a little hard. So they did go ahead and put the first version of their mobile app out. And that mobile app, I'm so happy, has the task list on it. It doesn't have a lot. I believe it has your journal and your task list. And they said that they are going to be doing iterations where they're able to add more and more to the mobile app. But right now, the mobile app, for sure, I've checked it out, I know it works, has your task list on it. And it is awesome because when I'm in the garden, I can just pull my phone out of my pocket and say, what do I need to do out here? And it specifically says, hey, Patrina, you need to harvest your Egyptian spinach. You need to go seed these winter squashes. And this one specifically, the candy roaster, the burgrass buttercup, the sweet dumpling. These are the ones you need to be working on this week. It's so easy. It's so helpful. And as much as I love the paper, I do, now that my garden has gotten much bigger, it's harder to keep track of all these little things that need to be done. All the nuances to make sure that I am planting my winter squash at the right time so I can harvest them before I leave on my trip. And that I don't have these beautiful winter squashes just rotting on the vine because I'm not here. I want to be as productive and efficient with my space and with my garden as possible because I have a smaller garden. I don't have a whole farm. I want to use this space most effectively. And that's what this tool does for me. And that's what the task list does for me. It keeps me organized. It breaks this monstrosity of a plan, which is a very large plan, into small bite-sized pieces so that I don't have a ridiculous amount of things to do, or I'm not looking at this trying to scroll through this and figure out when were the green beans, when was that, trying to line it up on a calendar. Nope, you just go to your task and it tells you for that week, this is what you should work on. You got some harvesting, you got some seeding. That's what you need to work on. Now the journal, I haven't used a lot. I did use a little bit where I think this is just where you can make notes. When was my first frost date? When was my last frost date? Which variety did really well? Which ones didn't? When did I plant them? So whippoorwill, I ended up writing here which ones were my favorite ones. What month and what day did I start them? I think I wrote this, back in 23. So over a year ago, I was like, you know what? You should probably start them around 4/15 because that worked out really well. And I didn't grow them on a trellis. So these are all the places where you can mark little notes about your favorite varieties, how they did during different seasons, all that fun stuff. Like I said, I don't use it as much as I would like to, but it works out well. I don't use the classroom at all. They do have master classes that you can sign up for. They do have a lot of webinars. This website, when you get signed up with them, they're going to send you emails and they're going to let you know of cool stuff they have going on. They always have cool stuff going on. They have like how to winter garden, how to do a cold frame, how to plant bare root strawberries. They all have all kinds of fun stuff here. And then you have the community aspect. I don't necessarily do this. And then you have the store. I have played around in the store a little bit. So they have, you know, green stalks, they have seedlings, they have all kinds of stuff, and you're going to get free seeds when you sign up. And they do have some good seeds for our area, but you do have to be picky because their seeds are really, like, for example, this dark green zucchini summer squash seeds. Yeah, those don't work that well down here. So you have to be very, or like this spinach. Yeah, spinach doesn't work very well down here. But you know what does work well down here is going to be the Jericho lettuce seeds. So you kind of have to go through and check like what they have versus what grows well in our area. They are not specific to a Florida or to a warm weather area. So that is something to take into account when you're going through their shop. But they have done a lot of cool things. They've done, what do they have? They have, yeah, see, they have like the growing supplies. They have biochar, coconut coir, they've got potting soil, worm castings, they've got different fertilizers. Like if we take a look at their fertilizers, they have all different kinds of stuff, like the down-to-earth stuff. I really like that. They have a lot of different things, both organic and synthetic. So they have growing containers. You can buy different kinds of growing containers. I personally am an Epic Gardening seed cell tray person. I got one of those and I am never changing because they are outstanding. But if you were more into the traditional trays, or maybe you want some grow bags, you can get them here as well. Like I said, they have flowers, they've got herbs, they've got all different kinds of vegetables. Now, if you've made it this far, you might be interested to know what exactly I am growing in my fall garden. So I'm going to walk you through that and show you the different plants that I'm growing and where I'm growing them in my garden. So I'm going to mark down here, November, I believe I'm completely full, yeah. Starting out by my pool, walking out the door here, I have Utah tall celery, so tall Utah celery. Right next to that, I'm growing many different kinds of broccolis. I'm doing my Arcadia, because you guys know I love Arcadia. I'm also trying 2 new varieties in the garden to try to find a variety that works as well as Arcadia does for me, because Arcadia isn't really a variety that's sold anymore. You can find a few of them on Amazon, but who knows if you're actually getting Arcadia or not on Amazon or Etsy. But I'm trying out Green Magic, and I'm also trying out Imperial. I think I got both of those from Johnny Seeds. They're both, I believe, hybrids. The Arcadia, I also have a Arcadia hybrid. This was the Arcadia that I let flower last year, and I collected the seeds. I'm going to do some testing to see whether it maintains it's a hybrid, so it really probably won't behave the same way, but I want to test it out. So those are the broccolis that I'm growing. Then I've got carrots right here. I've got New Coroto, I never know how to pronounce it, Cosmic Purple, Kyoto Red. I'm doing some tender sweets and some dambers because I have some old seeds that I need to get rid of. Right next to that, I've got my purple top white globe. I actually had turnips listed here twice, one that we put in together and one that I had put in before. Then I've got my cherry bell radishes, watermelon radishes, and then besides that, I'm doing, right next to the radishes, I'm doing beets. The 3 that I did really well last year was Avalanche and Early Wonder Tall Top, and then I can't remember the third one that I did that did okay. It was like a gold, it was a gold in Detroit. But that one just did okay, so I'm just sticking to these 2 this year. And then across the way where my A-frame trellis is, this is where I'm going to put all my tomatoes, and I have several tomatoes that I'm growing. Let me show you which ones I went with. It'll be a little easier to read over here. Tomato. So we're going to be doing the Heart of Sambaro. We're going to do Kiwola. We're going to do Green Tomatillos. That's not really a tomato. There's this one that a viewer sent me called Pantano Romanesca. I'm going to try that one. I don't know how well it's going to do, but we're going to give it a shot. We got some San Marzanos. The Cherokee Purple, which is not really Cherokee Purple. They don't have this in this system, but it's Donna's purple tomato. This is a viewer who sent me her own seeds that she's been saving. Then I've got the Red Currant, which I love. The Super Sweet 100s. The Black Cherry. And then the large red cherry. I'm going to do those. So those are all my tomatoes that I'm growing. In between the tomatoes, sorry, let me move us back to November when the garden is full. In between them, I'm going to put some marigolds because I want to filter in some flowers, especially around the tomatoes. I'll probably also do my perennial, I think they're called Florida Finley green onions, or a perennial green onion. I'll probably plant a bunch of those by the tomatoes because I think those really helped with bugs. Between the I think it was radishes and tomatoes or radishes and green onions that I was growing. I think that really helped with the disease and the pests and everything around the tomatoes. So I'm going to do probably those green onions plus these marigolds. Then right next to that, I have winter squash. I've got a sweet dumpling. I've got the candy roaster. Down here, I've got the South Anna and the Burgess buttercup. Most of these are the machetta. I think that's how you say it, the machetta variety of squash. I can't remember the name of how to pronounce it. Most of them are that variety that are meant for, you know, in places that are warm, or they're resistant to the squash bug, which is a really big deal in my garden. I also have some summer squash. I'm going to be trying one called Calabassettia. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I've been told that one does well down here. And then I have a bunch of plants, petunias, delilahs, nasturtiums, and a few others. Up here is going to be my onion bed. So I'm going to be doing red Creole, Texas early grano, and then these green lines right here are my favorite peas growing up my flat panel trellises, which is a tall telephone. I'll do those. Right here I've got my Brussels sprouts. I'm growing a new variety. I always grow Jade Cross. That one actually creates sprouts for me pretty consistently, as long as, you know, the weather's pretty decent. But there's another one that I'm growing called Green Gems. This is a new one. I'm told that it would work very similar to the Jade Cross, so we're going to give that a shot. Got the garlic. I have several different garlics that I'm growing. I'm growing my Insulin Red, but there is one called Transylvania that I'm going to give a shot. One of my viewers showed me his harvest. I thought it was absolutely beautiful, and they were huge garlics. So I ordered some of those, and I'm going to give those a shot. And then I have all my peppers here. I actually marked them. Those are my sweet peppers. I'll have gotten rid of my hot peppers by then. I'm going to do some light red kidney beans. I'm going to do some small red kidney beans. I've got different kinds of cauliflowers. I'm doing the clementine, which is orange, the purple city, which is purple, and then the snowball, which is white. Then I have all my cabbages. I mainly stick to the early Jersey Wakefield. I think that's the only one that I'm growing. Oh, okay. And the Savoia Perfection, which is a Savoia Ripley looking cabbage. Then I have my kohlrabi here. I'm doing the early white Vienna and the Conan. I like those two. And then for the lettuce, I'm doing Salanova. I'm doing Salanova, mostly the green sweet crisp, but I think I'll probably throw in there some giant Caesar and some mesclun and maybe some endive. Over here, I'm going to have some, they don't have an item for chamomile or lots of medicinal plants, so I actually just put them underneath basil. That's just how I group things. If they don't have it, I'll group herbs or medicinal plants under basil. And flowers, I think you saw it over here. It'll say stock. I don't actually grow stock. I grow other plants or other flowers, but if they don't show those flowers in the list, I just put them under stock. I hope that makes sense. Potatoes, I'm doing a couple new ones. So the Russian banana fingerling, I'm really looking forward to that one. This last year I grew the golden nugget and it was amazing. It tastes so good. I also grew the cow white. That one did really good. I'm going to try Huckleberry Gold because I hear good things about that. Over here, I'm going to grow some calendula. Then I've got my prism kale, my one kale plant. That's the only one I need. And then we have some of our purple white top. And then over here, we have my Seminole pumpkin that is growing up my palm tree. My green stalks all have, you know, herbs and strawberries in them. And I just haven't sat down to mark all of my herbs in every single one of those. And then I also have one that has sweet potatoes in it. So if we look and we come back to, like, say September, you'll see my sweet potatoes are over here. And here's the Heyman sweet potatoes that I have. And I also have the Tyneg, I can't say that, Tyneg 64 sweet potatoes. You can see how different the garden looks in September compared to what it looks like in November. In November, I suspect those sweet potatoes will be gone. I plan to harvest them in September before I leave. If you're interested in garden planning like this versus on paper, make sure to head down in the comments and let me know. If it is something that you guys are really interested in, I can do an in-depth and walk you through. I'll create a brand new garden for you and walk you through step by step exactly how I set the whole thing up. But I just want to gauge how much interest there is first before I go and sit down and do that. So if that is something that you would like, make sure to head down, give me a thumbs up, or head down and give me a comment letting me know that that is something that you're interested in. I hope this was helpful. I hope that it is an added tool to your garden planning aspect, whether you want to do that on paper or whether you want to do it on a computer or whether you want to do it like I do it, where I do a combination of both. You know what? Your garden, you do whatever works at keeping you on task and on schedule with your garden, or just chaos garden and just toss seeds and see what grows. It is your garden. It is your happy place. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today. I enjoyed walking you through my garden plan. Happy gardening, guys.